Let's now get the latest on the vaccines from Food and Drug Administration Director General Eric Domingo. He joins us tonight on The Final Word. Mr. Domingo, thank you so much for joining us on the program. When you take a look at the US and the UK, when the EUA is approved, the rollouts begin immediately. Why here in the Philippines, why can we not have the immediate rollout of the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine?
Yeah, well, in this case, I'm pretty sure that the US and the UK pre-ordered their stocks already. So they sort of placed their bets early. They already ordered and secured their supply, even though the clinical trials were still going on, and the EUA application in their respective regulatory agencies was still, I don't know, even probably before they were lodged. So they were already in place, and then as the studies became more convincing and the EUA was granted, they were ready to roll out immediately.
And this FDA EUA approval, Mr. Domingo, indeed culminates with a statement made by Secretary Galvez, the vaccine czar, on Tuesday and Wednesday, that the Pfizer vaccine may come in February and the supplies may even come ahead of the Sinovac vaccine.
Yeah, that's very encouraging because we know that there's quite a big supply of Pfizer that has been pre-ordered by the the richer countries, but maybe they're not able to mobilize it as quickly as they anticipated. So there's this possibility, I believe, that some stocks are being freed up, which makes it available for countries like us who have already regulatory approval for such products.
All right, let's now take a look at Sinovac, Mr. Domingo. It has applied for FDA emergency use approval. Why did they apply for an EUA without phase 3 trials? And the data that they submitted to you, the documents, are incomplete.
Yeah, well, my personal, this is my personal opinion. The phase 1 and phase 2 were completed, so they submitted that. But I believe the interim reports of the phase 3 trials are still being consolidated because they did it in several countries, in Brazil, in Turkey. And, we've been hearing different numbers from different countries where they're doing it, and Indonesia. So my guess is they're consolidating the reports right now to come up with one phase 3 trial report, interim report, which they will submit and as part of their application for EUA.
And Joko Widodo of Indonesia has already been inoculated with the Sinovac vaccine. And the government, Mr. Domingo, has ordered 25 million doses of this Chinese vaccine, which is set to arrive in late February. If the vaccines arrive, Mr. Domingo, and the data is still incomplete, what happens next?
Well, they cannot roll it out. It cannot be used until we have a complete evaluation and, our experts and the FDA is convinced that the benefit outweighs risk. That's what we're looking for here. A certain level of safety that will give us some assurance that when we give it, we're not going to expect any severe adverse events. And at the same time, that the benefit, meaning the efficacy, is at an acceptable level that will help us fight the pandemic. So maybe Indonesia has already seen some data which I haven't seen yet, and hopefully that gets to us soon so that we can evaluate it too.
So could the data from Indonesia and the President, Joko Widodo, being already immunized and it already being approved with an EUA in the largest Southeast Asian economy be an influence for the FDA to give Sinovac an EUA despite only having an efficacy or an effectiveness of 50.38% and has a record of suspended clinical trials?
Well, we still have to take a look at the data ourselves. There's a list of countries with very mature and what we call stringent regulatory agencies, which I am allowed to put reliance or recognition on their evaluations and decisions, like the US FDA, UK, EU, in Asia, for example, Singapore, Korea, and Japan. But so far, Sinovac has EUAs, I think, in their own country, in China, in Argentina, and Indonesia. And these are not these are not classified as stringent regulatory authorities, which means that, we're going to just have to be a little more meticulous when we evaluate the actual submissions when they are
Yes.
complete.
So, Mr. Domingo, with such a low effective rate, no, for Sinovac, why don't you request them to have clinical trials first in the country to check its effectiveness on our kababayans?
Oh, they are planning to do some clinical trials here.
Oh.
I believe it might start quite soon, no? But that is really, I believe, more of an expansion, like trying it on other age groups. Because, if they did it, for example, in Indonesia, the conditions in Indonesia, the racial characteristics are very similar to the Philippines. So I think data from Indonesia is going to be quite useful, no? But we just have to see. Like we all keep
So-
hearing 50%, sometimes 90%. But I haven't seen the actual technical paper and the
Okay.
report, and I cannot speculate until I see the actual paper.
All right. So, Mr. Domingo, let's say our government has already signed a deal with, let's say, a vaccine manufacturer, and the efficacy is in the low 50%, and it doesn't fit, and it doesn't meet the FDA's evaluation, and does not meet its standards. Will you recommend to the government to take back that deal and for the vaccine manufacturer to give back the down payment to the Philippine government?
It's very clear. If the FDA does not give an EUA, it cannot be used
Okay.
during the pandemic. No, so I think that would be a very clear signal to maybe do something. No, but like I said, no, even if there are pre-orders, even if there are stocks in place, unless they satisfy, our experts, they satisfy our regulatory requirements, then it cannot be used in the country, until that EUA is issued by the FDA.
That's good to know, Mr. Domingo. And aside, of course, from Sinovac, you have drug makers AstraZeneca and Gamaleya applying for an EUA. What is their current status? Do both vaccine makers have complete requirements?
AstraZeneca has complete requirements, but aside from that, AstraZeneca has an EUA from a stringent regulatory authority from UK. So that is quite reassuring, and it helps us read the evaluations a little faster, no? But right now they're at that question and answer stage wherein our experts are asking for some clarifications, and then of course the proponents will reply until they are satisfied. So that one, I think I would give it maybe 1 to 2 weeks would be
All
done
right.
with that, and we'll be able to make a decision on the application of AstraZeneca.
Okay,
For
so,
Gamaleya, I believe
so you're
we're
saying
still
then,
waiting
Mr.
for some
Domingo,
papers.
that AstraZeneca could get an EUA approval before the end of January?
The AstraZeneca will get a decision before the end of January. No, I cannot guarantee it's going to be an approval, no, but I can guarantee it's going to be a decision.
All right. Thank you so much for your insights and for joining us on The Final Word. Eric Domingo, the FDA Director General.